Welcome to Nuanced Beauty, because the world is nuanced and we think that's beautiful. Hi guys, welcome back to Nuanced Beauty. Hi Bill.
Hey, Christina. That's new.
I just thought I'd say hi to you.
Oh, hello.
Because
Haven't seen you all day.
I haven't seen you all day. Actually, we haven't seen each other most of the morning. But yeah, today is an episode with Bill and I. It's not an interview. It's back to our lovely nuanced conversations that we have that really, got the ball rolling in the show, in addition to my own nuanced reflections.
I've enjoyed all my time off.
You're what?
I've enjoyed all my time off.
Yes, the good part of doing interviews. Bill appreciates anyone listening who is an interviewer or such that I've seen you. He'll probably tell you thank you because his workload got cut in half.
Yeah, I got to use some of that PTO I've built up in the center practice.
So today's topic, I wanted to talk all about kids' activities.
Yeah.
We thought we'd start with the culture differences, right? So rewind. Zeke's first probably structured activity would be swimming back in Seattle because we wanted him to learn how to swim. He also had a lot of one-on-one care. So he got to do a lot of like arts and craft things. He got to go to a lot of indoor play things. Like they have a lot of YMCAs and other things.
Libraries are big there.
Libraries are big.
Libraries.
Paint studios, indoor playgrounds.
But none of those are the recurring Bill cycle activities that I think are what we're going to focus on here.
Oh, I guess, yeah, if you go that way.
He did a lot of community center stuff as, a 3-4-year-old.
Yeah.
And really, I think the Little Hoppers soccer was the first big one, wasn't
it? Well, yeah, swimming and then soccer. Yes. Soccer was probably the first thing we did back in Seattle. And
of course, indoor soccer because Seattle.
And then when we moved here, we also put him in soccer. And this was like him starting kindergarten, going into soccer. And we're like, yeah, our kid's done soccer for 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then and this isn't even like, we enrolled him in Upward Soccer, which for those of you who aren't familiar, it's like it's
church league soccer.
Yes. Upward is like a church organization of sports that incorporate a little bit of faith into the sports. And it's a little cheaper, I think, than some of the other ones.
Oh, yeah.
And it's slightly less, I wouldn't say it's slightly less professional, but you know what I mean?
Well, it's all volunteer led.
Yes.
It's on the whatever field on the back of the church with some cones. It's not nice jerseys. I mean, it's not free.
Yeah.
But it's not like,
I don't know, Florida Elite, is that the name of the other
Florida
one?
Elite's
or I-9 Sports is another
here,
one.
But it's not bring your kid here. We're going to develop him into
the next Beckham.
Well, this is how you get into the prep school or whatever. Like it's not advertised as come here so your kid gets good at soccer. It's come here, we're going to talk a little bit about
character
Jesus
building
and then go play soccer a little
faith
bit.
And character building in sports.
It's more of an activity for the sake thereof, not as a goal to get to the next activity.
Yeah, and that this particular point about soccer, so we started, and I'm trying to say it was like not that level of elite intense, but they were playing games every Saturday. So there was one night of practice and one day of games. And back in Seattle, he had 2 years of soccer, I say with air quotes.
Concept of competitive play.
There was no competition. It was just like kicking a ball around and like playing tag and freeze tag and whatever.
And to be clear, it wasn't because they were trying to coddle the kids like, oh no, we can't have competitive play because, someone might get hurt by not winning. It wasn't that. It was like, oh no, the goal here is to develop some skills. Is to develop the habit of listening to a coach and being in the rhythm of coming to practice and, just building some fundamentals. They never actually played a game.
Yeah. And so the overarching point we are trying to make is that one of the big differences in kids' activities that we're noticing just at this stage, going from West Coast to where we're at, is that they're serious about sports at a young age.
Very serious.
They're competitive, and there's batting cages in
I can
backyards
see three,
all
four of them
over the
sitting right now.
yeah, they're all over. And I say that not like, again, I'm not saying this to be like, oh, it's bad that you guys are so competitive at sports, but to acknowledge like, oh, yeah, this is a different focus.
Mm-hmm.
That was
I
not
was
the focus
I was
there.
talking to a mom on our street, and she was saying that if Zeke's not in soccer now, he's not going to get to play soccer later.
Yeah, like you're behind.
You're
If in
behind.
kindergarten, first grade, we're in first grade now.
Mm-hmm.
If in first grade you are not doing an outside of school extracurricular sport, don't expect to be playing it like in junior high
Mm-hmm.
because you're
He's
going to
not
be
going to get.
behind everyone who's actually playing in junior high and high school. And I'm sure that's, that's not foolproof. I bet there are some exceptions in that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very different I don't know, different focus. And we also have tried to figure out, okay, so what type of activities
Mm-hmm.
should a kid be doing? And before we even did
we
activities,
push soccer because it's the ball stays on the ground sport because you can't catch, and it's a high cardio sport. So I'm like, in terms of us like a sport for fitness, soccer is a great sport for fitness. Let's push them towards that.
Mhm.
That's why we chose soccer.
Yeah, and really, it's like what type of activities and how many activities. And so, what when we ask the question, what type of activities and how many, our rule guideline was okay. We're gonna allow 2 activities because you got to consider your finances, you got to consider your time, and all those things. Who else is in the household? We're gonna allow 1 physical activity, a sport or team sport, and we're gonna have 1 like brain or other
Music.
something
Coding for a
non-sport, like 1 physical, 1 not physical. And we did that last year for a time, but we actually found like we went ahead with jujitsu last year, moved on from soccer, went into jujitsu in the hopes of just helping physical awareness. But we found that seemed to be like it was just too much for our kiddo.
The gym he was going to really pressured us into 3 days a week, so it was a lot of activity during the week.
And then having the 1 day of non-sport, which was piano, and we did coding for a little bit. But it's like when we had coding, piano, and jujitsu, we that's when we dropped coding because like we're gonna do 1 sport, 1 non-sport. And our little guy, who's 2, he's not in an activity yet, but we were just talking about like, wow, he's getting close. He's getting close. Like we did a free day at Little Gym, and he enjoyed that a lot. So there's potential that he is going to be going in.
The people who were hoping that we would then pay for a membership were like, oh, wow, he's really good.
It was cute.
You should really develop this talent at this location for whatever.
They weren't that bad, but they're like, oh, he has some good core strength. Has he done a gymnastics thing before? And we're like, no.
Great salespeople.
Yeah, I don't think that was.
He is very strong.
He has more physical. He's just more physically inclined. So when you add more to the mix, like we don't know if 2 is even the right number. Like right now, we've dropped to 1 activity, and it's piano, and we're not doing a sport. But we set out to be like, okay, we're gonna have 1 physical and 1 mental, and now we're just doing the 1. And the second kid is on the horizon of swim lessons, probably, and maybe Little Gym. So it's it could get overwhelming quick when you add in all of these variables of like, what am I supposed to do? Like I'm a parent and I think I'm supposed to put my kid in these extra activities, or they're supposed to be doing activities, right?
Takes up a surprising amount of bandwidth to think just to make these decisions.
Yeah. So we're kind of, I guess the key considerations that through our experience of Zeke's history of extracurriculars and now throwing in the variable of another sibling, we aren't sure if he's always going to be doing a sport. We hope to incorporate a sport in time or physical activity. And we also have been really trying to just notice our child's inclinations and skills. And on one hand, we want to go toward the thing that they're inclined to do, like music. Our kid can figure out music quickly, our eldest. But at the same time, we want to develop underdeveloped skills.
Challenge.
And like, that is another, I guess, aspect that we've got to wrestle with in our house for deciding activities.
Yeah. And what's it worth to you to do that? And he's 7.
Oh, about being 7.
Do you think?
Let's give that one little story about jujitsu and him dogging it.
Oh, well, I mean,
Let's get that story
there's two
out there.
sides to this. You know, I was taking Zeke to jujitsu, and a lot of jujitsu at that age, they don't do a lot of wrestling. It's like, okay, do like burpees and push-ups and stuff, and bear crawl from here to there, and Zeke is remarkably talented at doing just exactly the least he can get away with.
He gets it from his papa.
A little bit. Hey, serve me well, Mike. But I'm watching this like he is watching where the coach's eyes are. And doing the work when the coach turns towards him.
And so Bill is recalling this story to me, and I am just like, Bill, he's 6.
Yeah.
And he's like, so? And so then in my mind,
what's he there to do?
In my mind, I'm rewinding like to years
and also,
past where we have been critical of parents with younger children being critical of their children in a sport because we're like, they're like kids, like it's fine.
But the other kids are way better at sit-ups. And there's a level of like, oh, he's 6, he hasn't developed these muscles yet, but the other kids are like just rocketing through these sit-ups. And so,
it's just the humor is there.
Zeke's the eldest. I don't know what's normal for a kid at this developmental stage. I'm figuring it out as we go.
Right.
But Christina had to remind me multiple times that he's 6.
Yeah. And it's just the humor is there on the bigger picture, how like we could be critical of someone else or make a snap judgment of somebody like, oh, you should have been able to do that. And it's like, dude, like simmer down. Like he's a kid. But then here, like in our own application is a story of like, oh, I see the other side. Like I see where you can get so invested because you actually do know your child's skills and inclinations and you know their personality. And so you're like, nah, for real, my kid is dogging it.
Yeah. And also not to get all like boomer dad about it, but there's a level of like, I'm not paying $200 a month for you to not do the sit-ups.
So yeah, we had to do that story because there's some good gems in that one. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the idea of like organized activities versus like independent studies or unstructured things, because we're talking about like, the organized activities that you pay for outside of your house. But meanwhile, we do, Zeke has Duolingo. So Zeke outside of school is, like he's learning Spanish with Duolingo on the iPad.
Which is probably not the most efficient way to learn a language. That's really designed for like grown-ups like me who have 5 minutes a day, but he's really enjoying it and he's picking up a handful of words. And at his age to pick up a handful of words, cool.
Is great.
Yeah.
But so there's not this clear definition here. And so like it really doesn't fall into the category of like a structured activity, but it is super useful.
I think when folks talk about structured versus unstructured activities, they're talking about the difference between
paying for it.
It's not about the pay, although that's part of it. You throw kids outside in a field and they have to come up with the game that they're going to play and execute on that game. And so there's a level of ownership in the thing that they're doing. Yeah,
creating and creativity for them.
They're creating and they're owning an outcome. Whereas when a kid goes from a classroom where he's told what to do every minute of all day,
the full 7 hours
then
a day,
goes straight to a practice where he's told what to do for the next hour. He never has an ownership in the process.
And then they're going to a phone to zoom out or zone out.
And then they turn 18 and you'll go out in the world and figure out what you're supposed to do. I've been told what to do every minute of every day my entire life. What do you mean just make a decision for my life? So there's value in just kicking the kid outside and told to figure it out.
And so it's like, these activities are really cool, but like let's not sell ourselves short in these independent activities, which I mean, Duolingo is more structured, right?
Oh yeah, that's
but it's independent and it's outside, so there's some self-initiative.
He's making the decision to do it.
And then the completely unstructured, which is like, yeah, go play outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Aaron's too, right? And I wanted to throw in there for at his level, we read almost every night at bedtime. And that's like they suggest you do that at like a pediatrician office and such. But that in its way is a habitual activity
Yeah.
that we're intentionally doing with our kiddos.
Yeah, I feel like we did it substantially more with Zeke.
Yeah, Aaron is less of a reader than Zeke.
Yeah, well, there's some chicken and egg to that. When you're in a rush to get one kid to bed so you can get to the other kid, you spend less time reading to the first kid. Because you need to get him down so you can get to the other kid.
Yeah, so all of that. So yeah, I guess those are thoughts we had. And then where's the beauty in all this? Let's go to that direction.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I didn't do organized activities until I was in third grade. When that was the youngest, they had a basketball program, and it wasn't until middle school they had football. But I think being in an organized team sport was the most valuable thing I did developmentally through junior high and high school, because you're part of a team. And I made a comment about not owning the outcome. You don't own what you're doing, but you still win or lose as a team, and you're part of a thing that's bigger than you, and you let other people down when you don't do the thing, and you have this camaraderie of people,
some dependence
that are your peers, is interdependence. Exactly. And I hate the idea of one of our kids not getting to experience that. And it doesn't have to be a sport. I think marching band has all of the exact same attributes that I just described.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, music.
Mm-hmm. And group music, so orchestra would do the same.
Yeah.
But soloist, not as much, is what I'm saying.
And
so when we're talking about, parents telling me if your kid's not developing into a athlete at 7, he's not going to get to play in high school, they're losing an
aspect of why you think it's like, for you, like why you value it as like, what is the point? It's a character building and a dependence in a social setting with other people.
I was never good enough, never was going to work hard enough to be good enough to get a scholarship. That was never my goal. Those are my friends,
Yeah.
And that mattered, and that pushed me to do things I didn't want to do.
Yeah. And gave you a sense of purpose.
Gave me a sense of purpose. I wrestled my junior and senior year of high school, and I hated wrestling. Absolutely hated it. I was the fat kid. And putting on a singlet and getting in front of the whole school to get your ass kicked, which is what wrestling was for me. I didn't want to do that, but I did that because I didn't want to let my teammates down. And I learned how to do the thing you didn't want to do.
Yeah. And it also really helped you health-wise, right? Like wrestling was the thing that helped you lose weight.
You know why I got to do that? There was nobody else in the school.
Yeah, because it's middle of nowhere.
I didn't have to beat out another heavyweight to
be able to wrestle.
I was on the baseball team my senior year because they had 8 guys. They needed a 9th for the team. So I started every game my senior year. I sucked at baseball. It didn't matter. They needed a 9th. Go stand in right field. We need someone. Go pick some dandelions.
Yeah. And like, I guess I was kind of thinking like, okay, where's the beauty in this? On my side, I was kind of thinking about like, when you remember, like if you were to think back to when you were growing up, do you have any monumental regrets of like wishing your parents had only enrolled you in that like activity? And it's interesting because in one sense, it's like, it's not a monumental regret, but I had moments of like, oh, I really wish that I could have did gymnastics, and I wish that I could have played the piano because I learned to play the flute. And I actually got to I started playing flute in 4th grade. So the opposite of you being in small town nowhere, being in a big city like Denver, there were outside school programs where I got to learn how to play the flute in 4th grade. So when I went to smaller town in 7th grade, I was 3 years ahead in skills on an instrument because I got to learn. I had those resources were available earlier to me. But there were more people, and so I don't know, there's kind of like a give and take about like the size of the community you're in and how that also impacts the activities. But I would say that I don't have any like monumental regrets. Like, oh my gosh, if only I had did that one event or that one activity. Boo, parents, you didn't let me do that activity.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's okay. Right? Like, it's okay to get really intentional in these activities. And it's also okay to not. I will say Zeke is probably in part playing piano because I'm like, oh, I wish I could have learned how to play piano, because knowing the flute and being as musically inclined and doing like AP music theory in high school and playing flute through college, it was super cool. But I had dreams of like, I'm gonna play at Juilliard one day. And so now I am kind of sort of slightly maybe vicariously living through my 6-7-year-old almost.
Pushing this dream on them.
Yeah.
Going to Juilliard may have been the opportunity of your life, but I don't want your life.
Oh my gosh. What movie was that from?
Varsity Blues.
Oh, lovely.
On what seminal football movies that got me all fired up for football season. A great movie.
So yeah, we could end on that. There you have it. That is our nuanced beauty take on activities and kids. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the spirit of nuance, I hope you found something that you could agree with and you could disagree with, and still choose to lean in. Give us a follow, rating, and review, and consider sharing this episode with a friend to continue the dialogue and help us grow. Until next time.